just felt like starting that way today, man. Welcome back to the Let's Go Win podcast, where we are here to help you be happy, healthy, wealthy, and get better every single day. This episode is going to be amazing. I've been so blessed and fortunate to have this gentleman become what I consider a good friend, and he is wildly talented, he's gifted, and he is absolutely going to blow us away. Mike Zeller is a serial entrepreneur and mentor, has led over 16 ventures across 7 industries, amassing $100 million in revenue. Despite personal challenges, he now guides high achievers through the ReWired Program to overcome limitations and boost productivity. Using NLP and other techniques, he aids in rapid trauma healing and personal development. He's also the author of The Genius Within. Wow, that episode is freaking dynamic. It's exciting. There's just so much about the way Mike shows up is just, you want to be around him more. That's one of the first things that when I met him, he's somebody that takes action. You know, there's some people that they say they're going to do something and maybe it happens. Mike literally says, I'm going to do something, and within minutes, it's already done. I've been introduced to some amazing people around the world because of Mike, and it's just, I love when people take action, and that's literally what he's talking about. The way he's helping people overcome traumas. Both he talked about himself with some of the entrepreneurial challenges that he had, some of the traumas that he had. How he was able to help his wife overcome, postpartum and some of the challenges after having kids. And he is literally going to be helping my wife and I do some of the same things. The NLP world is absolutely fascinating, and he's one of those practitioners that does that alongside of some of the, as he calls it, sacred medicine, plant medicine, to really access the subconscious mind and rewire. The way he talked about the neuroplasticity of the brain. Again, he's not a scientist. That's not his background. And yet his knowledge on the brain is remarkable. What he is able to do in such a short period of time. He's one of those people that I feel so blessed to have met, and I want you guys to meet him too. You heard it in the episode. You'll hear it in the episode if you haven't listened. Everyone has trauma at some point, and there are real solutions out there, and they don't have to be scary. It doesn't have to be something to be afraid of, and you truly can live your best life. The other thing that was awesome in this episode is we dove into the state of flow, and he gave the 7 main ingredients of how to get into that flow state. And the way he talked about it, it was so practical yet simple, and it's something that all of us can do to really get into that flow state, whether that's for work, for personal life, relationships. It's that thing that I'm always chasing, is to be in that flow state, and he gave a roadmap on how to get there. I'm smiling ear to ear after going through that interview with him. And I'm so excited for you to take that journey with us to really understand that there are solutions no matter what trauma you may have dealt with. And Mike will be the first to tell you, look, if I'm not the right guy or person for you, I'll absolutely let you know that, and I'll get you to someone else. But he's helped so many people, and he's found his passion. You can feel it. So enjoy the episode, you guys. It is remarkable. Please share this with people you love, because everybody deserves this chance to hear about Mike Zeller, what he's doing. And so until next time, I hope you guys appreciate it. Enjoy the episode. What is up, my brother? I didn't know all these things about you. You're such a humble dude, and $100 million in revenue, 16 ventures. I don't even know how you keep track of that. You've been busy, brother.
I have. I've had a few wins and a few failures along the way. So that's part of it. You just take a lot of swings at the plate. Eventually, you'll have some wins, I guess. So,
that's pretty true when it comes to being an entrepreneur. It's not always sunshine and rainbows. In fact, if you haven't failed, you probably haven't put yourself out there. I guess I'll give you a layup question, and then we'll get into the nitty gritty. But Did you learn more from your wins or your losses? Truly, and I mean that sincerely. Which one do you feel like, man, I really grew in this instance?
Yeah, I mean, I think the bigger the failure, the more the lessons are there to be unearthed. So it's almost like they're buried, but you have to go digging, right? Because you don't. Sometimes when you have failures, they sting a lot, and you don't want to face them. You kind of want to be the ostrich that just puts its head in the ground. And so I've had a few of those, and I had a few seasons where I was like, I just want to be the ostrich. I'm going to put my head in the ground. This sucks. That was too hard. That was too painful. Too much trauma from my mistakes. Like when I lost $1 million, that was a freaking lot of trauma. And but if you look, the deeper you have to go, it's like a skyscraper. If you're going to build a skyscraper, you go down and down and down. The tallest buildings in the world, they go down really far. And so, that old Napoleon Hill quote, behind every setback is the seed of an equal or greater opportunity. So I totally believe that. I've seen that true.
Yeah, I was smart enough to start a mortgage company in 2009, so I know how it feels to lose $1 million on a venture. Not the best strategic plan, being that I'm not even in that world on top of it. But I am curious, brother, with $1 million loss, that stings a little bit. But here's, I guess, what I look at, man, is that you can build these things. You have the confidence, you have the skills, you have this incredible ability to network. Was there ever a moment where you doubted yourself, where you're like, I'm an imposter, this can't happen? Or because again, you're humble, yet there's this quiet confidence that really is such an attractive quality that you have. So did you ever really doubt yourself after losing that?
Oh yeah. Like I went through, so you go through a significant loss, especially as a type 3 Enneagram achiever, like high achiever type, when you just really did not achieve. And especially I got married during that season too. So my financial house was a house of cards and everything was falling, it felt like. And nothing where you take enough swings of the plate, you're going to, I was batting like 700 before that. But then all of a sudden, 3 out of 10 things were working, which is not enough during that season. And then I got married, and I was literally my cash cow business had disintegrated 3 months before our wedding. But I had enough runway to literally, I could see right after our wedding in Florence, Italy, which we had 70 people coming. And we had this beautiful, and we paid for the villas for everybody to stay in, and we had great food because I was like, cash is coming. I'm good. My business is cash cow. And in that business, I would work 5-10 hours a week. And then it crumbled. And literally we ran out of money on my honeymoon. And then I had, multiple other businesses that were not producing significant cash or significant enough cash during that time period. And so it was just and I had rented out our house in Nashville. And so we were in Europe for 5 weeks, hopping around, sometimes not always knowing which bank account I'm going to have to reserve tomorrow's hotel room on. And so that was a brutal season and not the best way to start off a marriage. So fortunately, my wife stuck by me and I wouldn't have made it through that season without her. But then for the next 2 years, I had what I would call my first and only serious round thus far of entrepreneurial trauma, where I had a lot of failure in that moment. And it was almost like I was a dog with a tail tucked between his legs. Just shame. I did not want to show my face. I felt embarrassed. I was so stressed. And so I got some PTSD and some trauma. And I'd wake up in that season of I knew there was a lot of people I had to take care of, whether employees, creditors, etc. And I would literally wake up in the morning for about a year straight with my arms wrapped tightly around my chest because I would be, it was my body was anticipating the stress of the next day. And then I would have to do meditation, prayer, just feed my mind for the first hour just so I could chip away at the problems that I had unintentionally caused for myself and my wife. So it was a difficult 2-year period, but yeah.
I'm so curious because obviously the work you do with NLP, the techniques that you do with, healing these, as you mentioned, entrepreneurial PTSD, these traumas that come along. So it sucks. You're going through this like, okay, amazing, coming off the high of getting married. Oh, by the way, no money on a honeymoon. Cruising Europe, by the way, I've done it on PBJs, but not preferably during your honeymoon. That sucks. Hi, new bride. Here's how we're going to travel. We're going to stay at $2 hostels. I've done it, but never in that scenario. Did it lead you to really what your passion is now, brother? Because when I talked to you, when I first met you, there's a fire, and I mean that in a very kind, generous, like amazing way. There's a fire when you talk about the work you do today. So is this ultimately that jumping off point where you're like, oh, now I know my life's work. This is really where I want to put my efforts today.
Yeah, I would say that was the first significant of two pillars. Meaning, so I didn't recognize it because I didn't really study trauma at that point. I was in the peak performance psychology, and that's a very different paradigm, right? Deep trauma, PTSD, depression. I was maybe mildly depressed, but I had some PTSD for sure. But and then the NLP side, that actually helped me pull out of it, because I started asking myself, as I started working through the process of how am I going to get myself out of this situation? Because I had literally millions in debt. I mean, I had assets. I had real estate assets and stock and other things, but private stock, so I couldn't easily access that, right? The thing that I had to do is I had to work on an alter ego. And it's one of the things I help people with right now, which is like, I identified, all right, the person that got me in this mess, his name is Weak Ass Willie. I literally did a meditation. What's the name of this guy? I did my own meditation. And Weak Ass Willie walks around with his tail tucked between his legs. He doesn't face his problems. He's the ostrich putting his head in the sand, right? I was like, he's not going to get you out of this shithole you built for yourself. The second one, though, then I had a client, and she was a medical doctor, and we did a one-day VIP session, and we created a massive breakthrough for her in that day. Like, got her unstuck in her career, made some powerful decisions, all that. Well, she said at the end of it, she's a little Asian lady, and she's like, Mike, you are Magic Mike. You create magic in my life. I was like, that's right. I am Magic Mike. And that became my other alter ego, which is I create magic in my life and the lives of those I serve. And so that, then I started meditating every day. I would for years, I would start with this exact meditation of like, I am Magic Mike, or affirmations. I create magic in my life and the lives of those I serve, and on and on. I had like 2 minutes and 22 seconds of affirmations. And funny, most of those have come true since starting that in 2020. But like, I had to find that other identity to get me out of that, and that I could make decisions from the vantage point of that other identity.
That's brilliant. I'm curious though, Weak Ass Willie, which I don't mean to laugh at your pain, but it's a great freaking name, brother.
Yeah, right.
Does Weak Ass Willie still show up, or have you squashed him, buried him under, instead of the ostrich being in the sand? Have you buried Weak Ass Willie, or does it still pop up?
Yeah, he still will show up every now and then, and then I'll recognize it, and I'll be like, you know what, time to get out of here. Like, come on, Magic Mike, or I have other alter egos like Hollywood Mike Z is more my entertaining public speaking type guy. And so when he comes, like, we all have different parts. So if I'm trained in NLP, master NLP practitioner, but also internal family systems, talks a lot about all the different parts, and it's really about integrating and synergizing and calling forth the different parts at the right time. And you look at peak performers like a Kobe Bryant, when he stepped on the basketball court, he was like Black Mamba. Beyonce, Sasha Fierce, Bo Jackson, one of my, he was Jason from Friday the 13th on the field. He's going to destroy people. He's going to run over them, right? And you look, when people have a really strong identity or persona, and you even like Superman, right? Clark Kent and Superman. Like, you're one person when you're wearing that outfit or that energy, and then you need to be another person. And it also affects your personal life. So like, I know when I'm in GSD mode, I'm just getting crap done. If I bring that same energy into spending time with my wife or with my daughter, they feel like, oh, dude, you're an asshole. Get out of here. So I have to switch. Literally, I'll sometimes pause at my front door when I'm walking in from a day of work, and I'll, am I still in my work energy and my work identity? Yep. Do a breath, connect with playful dad. I need to go connect with him. He's got to show up right now. So as I walk through the door, I'm in the playful dad energy. And I'll also even have music or playlist that I might listen to in the last stretch of my drive to just shift my energy, help me accelerate shifting into a different persona for the evening.
Yeah, it's interesting because, often if, let's say we were talking about personality disorder, and I'm not suggesting that that's what we're doing at all.
Yeah.
But there's a negative connotation like, oh, I don't want to do that. I want to be this genuine, authentic person all the time. However, there is definitely a difference between work mode, dad mode, whatever hat you're wearing. And I think there's a ton of power to what you're talking about. You mentioned athletes. Nadal is one of my favorites, big tennis family. He is a freaking savage on the court.
Yep.
I mean, he will literally rip your head off. And off the court, he's the most gentle, kind human being.
Yeah.
And that's what you're talking about with Kobe. Same thing. Like, Black Mamba on the court, absolute killer. But off the court, really deep, philosophical, kind, all these things. And I know, people think what they want about Kobe, but it's pretty amazing. So it's healthy, I guess, in a way to say, look, this is a persona. I recognize that, and I have the ability to shift. How would you go about that, man? Literally naming it? Is that how you start? Or do you find Mike Zeller and let's do some sessions? How does this work, man?
Yeah, I have an alter ego process. So I have a worksheet that people can grab, but I'll literally in the questions, and it goes with my Claim Your Power NLP meditation, which is on my YouTube channel. And in that meditation, I guide people into the process of identifying where your subconscious wants to speak, right? We're often, our subconscious rules us, but we often have trouble getting to the subconscious because of our conscious mind or our protector parts. So when you go into a meditative state or hypnotic state, or on medicine journeys, for example, then you're much more easily able to access that. When you access the subconscious, because 98% of our thoughts are subconscious and they are your default mode. And that's why it's so hard for people to change, especially once we've matured as adults, because getting to that is near impossible without really prescient guidance. But when you get to it, then we'll ask your body, literally, if we did a session, like when you and Lisa fly up and we do a session, I can actually access that part of you, and your body will tell you what the name of that version of you is. It will just blurt out. Like one of my clients, her name was Renee. I helped her make some massive income breakthroughs and identity breakthroughs, and her part that came up was Barbuda. Like, where did that come from? Barbuda. Like it can be a wild name. You don't even know, or it might be Jerry or whatever. It will show up when we access it.
Yeah. By the way, he's mentioning Lisa and I are going to go do work with Mike, and it leads right into a question I was so curious to ask you. Was this always, you were pretty open-minded to, I guess what I would call it is Eastern philosophies is kind of where I'm going to put it. I'm not saying that what you do is, but it's not traditional. It's not doctor necessarily. This is how we're going to do it. And I will tell you, my journey was not always welcome and open, especially when it came to plant medicines, to where I had a lot of judgment, a lot of things around it. And I've done ayahuasca. My audience knows that. It's one of the most incredible things I've done. And yet I was so not open to these things. But gradually, as I've learned about the world, kind of learned about, hey, some of this programming that I had wasn't super healthy. Holy shit, there's some amazing stuff. NLP, there's, mantras and meditation and breath work and all the amazing stuff that we've discovered. What did your journey look like, brother? Did you grow up on a commune and hippies and it was like, hey, man, let's do this? Or are
Yeah.
you like, I discovered this along my journey?
Yeah, good question. So, so now I help guide leaders, obviously, through transformative experiences using what I would call sacred medicines, which is a blend of SAS, MDMA, psilocybin, and in my retreat. Now, I don't supply, just for clarity, I'm not a supplier of the medicine, so that protects me legally because of legality issues within most states currently. But really, I was closed off to it too. I mean, I grew up in a Christian household, and I was very much into philosophy and traditional aspects. Was very much in that dare to say no to drugs, and I don't even look at these as drugs when used the way I use them. I use them as a medicine. It's a tool to access higher levels of consciousness, creativity, heal trauma. It's the most powerful. These medicines, when combined with proper guidance, are literally the biggest breakthrough in mental health and transformation, cognitive, conscious transformation that we have discovered in our lifetime. Easily, it's not even close, and and the reason is because the substances, when again safely used, and each substance has its own, let's call it code of what it can use for, how it's going to interact with certain other, like if you're taking medications, you got to be sensitive to all that, and you have to, really be aware or have the guide know what the heck they're doing. But there's nothing like them in the sense of they can double your neuroplasticity. And that basically means that you return back to being like 4 or 5 years old, which means you can rapidly learn again or rapidly heal, integrate, transform, shift. And literally, if our memories are encoded according to feelings, then what happens is with these substances, I can now help you access a massively painful memory, but then change the feeling of that memory and thus change the past, which allows you to change your future.
I have so many questions, and I don't know where I want to take this because what is the fear? You called it sacred. These have been around for
Yeah.
thousands of years with different tribes. Not necessarily the exact formula that it is today, but a formula of sorts. And yet, it's so, like you just talked about it, like legally, I have to do this to make sure that I don't get in trouble, even though what I'm doing is helping people
Yeah,
to
correct.
be an amazing citizen, helping them to live their best lives, helping them to drive our
Mm-hmm.
economy. And there's countless. I don't actually know plant medicines anyone that had the bad journey. At least I'll speak for ayahuasca and some of the other ones you mentioned. Where did we lose this, man? Why do we have to bring it back out?
Yeah.
Is there fear? Is it big pharma saying no, we can't make money off this?
Big pharma is trying to seize the opportunity to make money with them, actually, because they recognize this is an unstoppable train and it has a massive potential. Like FDA has fast tracked legalization of MDMA and psilocybin, which should both happen this year, or decriminalization, according to maps.org. So the where we went wrong is in the 60s drug and hippie culture, which is alternative. The institution was controlled. If you think of big military, big pharma, big food, but the Nixon administration and even the Lyndon Johnson administration with all the Vietnam War, they were against the Vietnam War. And you look at how many people were imprisoned, how much controversy was happening, civil rights, women's rights, Vietnam protests, etc. So the government and these drugs were associated with the hippies, LSD, psilocybin, etc. And yes, they've been around. Most of them have been around for years, centuries and centuries. And indigenous cultures have no fear of them, but they respect them and they appreciate their therapeutic potential. So Nixon administration carte blanche just ignored the science because they showed enormous promise in the research in the 70s. And you think of all the Vietnam veterans and war veterans that have suffered needlessly, they could have been cured from their PTSD. with the all the homeless veterans we've had in our country still that could have been cured of their alcoholism, etc., because they're reliving the trauma. They are reliving PTSD, and these drugs are the most powerful tools for curing PTSD. I know firsthand from my wife and other people that have led or am leading through that. So then it got lumped in, and Nixon just carte blanche said all these drugs are bad, and it was more a political decision than a scientific decision. And then so research basically went underground and became dormant for decades until kind of started coming back in the 80s and 90s. And then guys like Tim Ferriss has put in over $10 million into research in this, been a huge advocate. And now there's so many scientists. I mean, anyone in the mental health space is an advocate for this generally. And it's massive. It's happening. It's coming.
Yeah, well, which I'm glad to hear. I mean, it's kind of I equate it to how meditation was looked at.
Yeah.
It's this crazy thing. It doesn't do much. And then all the science is backing it up. I am really happy to hear, like you said, psilocybin, and I think you said MDMA this year. That's amazing, you guys. If you're listening, for those of you that haven't looked at this, what it can do for people is remarkable. And I want to get into it. You have a couple topics here that I have to ask. Because you mentioned the subconscious brain, you mentioned the subconscious mind, and how much of it drives us. And one of the topics here is the ways trauma in organizations and leaders can kill growth. Often it's again, they don't even know this is happening. They don't understand that I'm operating a certain way because of some trauma that has happened, whether it's in childhood or, as you mentioned, an entrepreneurial thing that has absolutely stunted the way my thinking is going, and I've shut down doors. How much of this is happening, brother? Is it happening across all these organizations, across every industry?
So one of the challenges with the nervous system is it remembers, right? And that's why the book Body Keeps the Score is so popular. So a difference, we think, our nervous system, our brain, our body is like resetting all the time, making new cells. Well, that's true for red blood cells. But your skeletal muscle cells, they literally live for 15 years. So what that means is all right, so if we rewind back to whatever was happening in our life in 2009, most of our muscle cells still remember. So muscle memory is a real thing. So if you go through a massive scenario, and what trauma really is it's where your body hits overwhelm, and it can be your child can cause you trauma, a work situation can cause you trauma, an embarrassment can cause you trauma. So your nervous system can almost become stuck in that moment, and if it becomes stuck, you've got a challenge, right? And the substances, MDMA or psilocybin or ketamine, is legal in most states. They will help your nervous system get past that. Basically, it opens you up. It's almost like you get a fresh powder put on a ski slope. When you get fresh powder on that ski slope, then now you have to create the new neuro grooves. That's where the guidance comes in. Basically, the substances allow for the capacity for a reset, a factory reset. But then you need the trained practitioner or guide to be able to help you create that transformation.
So to give everybody a little context, Magic Mike definitely showed up when I met him in Vegas. And here's what I'm talking about. He mentioned 2009. Now, our youngest son was born in 2009. Lisa almost died giving birth to Trey. Okay. 2 years later, she and I are separated for almost a year. Now, I'm very open about this. You guys know this. What Mike didn't know any of that. And he looked at my wife and he said, wow, you are carrying so much in your upper shoulders, neck area. What he doesn't also know is that she's had 2 frozen shoulders on both sides. And I'm telling you this to say, he talked to us for, 5 minutes, and it wasn't unsolicited advice. He just said, I was giving her that shirt that you were talking about. And I was like, put this on, babe. And Mike could see without touching her at all, why are you holding so much there?
Yeah.
15 years, brother. I am so excited for her to work with you. Talk to me a little bit about the work. I mean, I know, but I want my audience to know
Yeah, yeah.
what that looks like, man, because this is real. This is things that can help people that they don't think there's a solution. They just continue going through life in a way like my wife, really stuck. And it doesn't have to be like that.
Yeah. 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 100%. Yeah, what happens? So, like your wife, Lisa, obviously she has some PTSD from that scenario and some stuck trauma. And what happens is your body tenses up, your muscles. It's what I had, when I was waking up during that season, and I had to retrain my body to relax and retrain my muscle cells to relax. Now, when you have, the more significant it is, the more devastating or traumatic it is, the more you, like, a velvet hammer is not going to work. Like gentle meditation is not going to create the rapid change you need. You need a freaking jackhammer to bust through that hard outer shell and get to the inside and create the transformation and healing. So when you guys fly in, for example, so when we do the MDMA, what's going to happen is the medicine is going to flood you with love and empathy, and it's actually going to cause your nervous system and your body to relax. And also you're going to get more in your body. So like we're going to be able to connect. Lisa's going to be able to connect with her body, connect with those experiences, but connect with them in a safe space. Because if she tries to access them right now in a normal setting, it's too overwhelming for her. Just as it was then, and 15 years ago, 2009. So, but with the medicine's help and assistance, they're much less overwhelming. And usually in one session, sometimes a couple sessions, but in one session, we'll shed a huge part of it. I had another client, she came in with so much resentment actually towards her husband, and she's CEO of her business, and she is just overwhelming her business, overwhelming life, and just so much negative energy. One session, completely gone. All of that completely gone, right? And everyone's different. Like for my wife, more complex PTSD or severe cases, we might need multiple sessions to get it all the way gone. But what's going to happen is she's going to be able to relax, and then we'll be able to do the work and integrate the scared version of her that was happening in 2009, and then other moments, connect with that version, let that version express its desire for integration, the pain, the suffering, etc., and move that energy through. Okay. So like moving the energy through is what we need. And when it's moved through you and out of you, then your body can do a reset.
What I think is so fascinating to me is the different modalities and the importance. And the reason I say this, it's not like Lise hasn't done a lot of deep work. She has, man, like serious personal development work. She has to listen to me yammer on almost on a daily about the stuff I'm learning about. But this ability to use these, as you called them, sacred medicines, to access something that's extremely challenging to do, like you said, doing, whether it's, meditation. I mean, the amount of hours required to be like, a Buddhist monk, essentially, to get in there. People aren't going to do that. And I'm not saying this is an easy fix, because I know work, and this is going to be work. There's going to be some tears shed, no question about it. I'm sure of that. But I think what's so interesting to me, and why I'm so excited about this, is that you're able to tap in a gentle way. I don't know. It's not going to overwhelm her, but yet it's going to allow her to show up as her best self.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Thoughts on that? That wasn't a question. I guess it's just my statement.
So what happens in the experience? So in the first 3 to 6 hours of the experience, it's like, again, back to the neuroplasticity and why it's so important. She's going to have this huge surge of neuroplasticity and this huge serotonin release in her brain, which is a dopamine, not a dopamine chemical. It's a pleasure chemical. And so it allows us to repattern, literally go back in and reprogram that memory and that trauma, and also create the integration. And then the other angle, so it has to be in a really safe container. And this is where, the music, you being there, I think is also going to be helpful. and also going to create integration between you guys and harmony. And so there's just nothing like it that allows you to get that surge again, unless you had some sort of additional, maybe a religious ecstatic experience like Paul on the road to Damascus, but we're not, most of us are not having that on a daily basis. And this is like essentially a way to create a guaranteed outcome, because therapy is slower, and therapy with the substances is really fast. And so it's like the experience that we've seen is this is like 2 to 5 years worth of therapy in a single session in terms of the transformation. So you think of how much money, how much time, more importantly, and just how much struggle. Like my wife had, if we just relied on therapy, oh, dude, we'd still be suffering so much if we didn't have the medicines, because she was in a deep depression and complex PTSD spiral.
Yeah, the neuroplasticity part, I didn't know. Even talking to you, I didn't understand that. So I'm so glad you stated that. Now I'm really excited. I was already excited to go and hang with you, but secondly, to do this work. You have something here that you mentioned, really getting to, you didn't say flow state, but that's where I'm going with this. And obviously you've reached that many, many times to have 16 ventures, 100 million in revenue. And again, that's just a scoreboard, right? Mm-hmm. But it's a significant scoreboard. You had to reach flow state throughout that time.
Yeah.
You have something that says the 7 main ingredients for flow state. I want to know more, brother, because it's what I seek every single day. I want to find it. I want to have it every day of my life. But it's not always easy to access. So what does that look like, man?
Yeah, good question. So the 7 main ingredients of flow state, and let me break it down as well for what happens when you're in flow state. When you are in flow state, you have, in essence, complete immersion into whatever the activity is. So like, you're just zoned in. It's where you lose track of time, and you see athletes where they're just in the zone. And you've probably had it when you're doing public speaking, or you're just writing a book and you just tap in and you're almost like channeling something. And it's where you're also connected. So you see sports teams when they're in sync, like the Golden State Warriors when they're playing, the Cavs or whoever, where they're just on another level where they're in flow state. They can read each other's minds, right? Tom Brady and Gronkowski, those type of things. So, and it's also where six neurochemicals are released in your brain, 6 pleasure chemicals. This is oxytocin, serotonin, dopamine, endorphins, and norepinephrine, and I forgot the 6th one. But so it's one of the most powerful states you can be in, arguably the most powerful. Actually, the people who experience the most flow state in their life experience the highest levels of happiness and life satisfaction. So it's literally why it's so important to activate it, and you can design your life to activate more of it. The other thing is you're 500% more productive because you're so locked in. So it actually boosts your productivity, and this is from Flow Research Collective and Dr. Mihaly. He wrote Flow. I can't say his last name. It's a giant.
God, you're attempting it. Yeah, I can't do it, man. But
yeah. He
Dr.
coined
M.
Yeah, Dr. M, exactly. And the main ingredients to activate flow state is 0 interruptions. Okay. So are minimal interruptions, because it takes up to 23 minutes to refocus. 13 is kind of the norm, but up to 23 minutes. A hard but manageable task. So it needs to be challenging enough. For most people, that's typically 10 to 15% beyond your comfort zone. So you got your comfort zone, your discomfort zone, which is where you can activate flow state. And then I call it the paralysis zone. When you're 20% above, it's going to be so hard and you might flop. Your nervous system will hit overwhelm. The next one is a deep concentration. Deep concentration is where you just get so locked in. You're immersed. You're zoned into the activity at hand. The 4th is a clear goal. Immediate feedback is the next one, where you can see, is this working or not? Deep, effortless involvement is another one. And then control over your actions, which all leads to, when you combine all these things together, all right, then it leads to just you're just one. you're in the state of oneness with whatever task you're doing, whether you're a big wave surfer and you're riding this 50-foot wave, you're a baseball player, you're playing with your kids. Playing with your kids actually can activate flow state. Speaking, having a beautiful dinner with another group of friends where you're just in sync in conversation, you can activate a lower level of flow state as well. So
how often do you actually hit it, brother? Because it is, when you feel it, you're like, oh my, I want more of this. Talk about a drug. My God, if I could figure out how to reach flow every single day, I don't. As much as I want to, I am way too distracted most of my days. And I know that. How often are you hitting it, brother?
I'd say on a consistent basis, I hit it probably. Actually, when I play basketball on Mondays, I usually hit it. So play activities are very flow inducing. Like you go and play pickleball or basketball with friends or golf and you just get in the zone. Now, if you're like flubbing it up, you're probably not in flow. But I probably do it a couple times a week. My Sunday mornings when I have a little dedicated creative writing block and no one's interrupting me, that's a huge one. That's my favorite working block of the week. And I usually try and get one in like Thursday morning, or when I lead a session, like when I lead a session with you and Lisa, I'll be in flow with you guys and the three of us will be synced up with one another. It's going to be pretty cool.
Have you recognized, like you mentioned Sunday mornings, right? And obviously being able to reach that creative side of our brains helps. It definitely, that's when I've probably felt it the most, is either, as you said, speaking, writing, or playing sports.
Yeah.
All of which require some creativity. Are there certain things that we can do, brother, to set ourselves up to succeed? I know you mentioned not getting interrupted. I know that's a huge one. Is there stuff that you do like meditation or breath work? Or I really want to give some tangible tips, not only for my audience, but for me, because I want to hit it more.
Yeah.
And I read Dr. M's stuff. It is incredible, but yet it's still somewhat elusive at times.
Yeah, 100%. So manage. So the first thing you want to think of, like if I'm going to have a writing block that's going to be in flow state, I'm going to manage my inputs before I start that. So I'm not going to go through and check all my email, all my social media accounts, text message, and read ESPN, whatever. I don't want my mind to be cluttered with all these open loops. The more open loops I've started, the harder it is for me to close those loops enough for me to get in flow. Next one is if I'm my energy, and energy is in 4 quadrants: emotional, physical, mental, and spiritual. So if I am depleted significantly in any one of those areas, it's going to make it a lot harder. Okay. So if I wake up in the morning, I'm going to try and get in flow state, boom, but I'm just energetically drained, that's going to be hard. And so I might start off also with an energy nourishing activity, whether it's reading a positive book. Like you got some good ones, right? Dive into Let's Go Win or whatever, or Think and Grow Rich, whatever it may be. Read something that inspires you. The third thing that I would do, so fill in my mind with a little bit of inspiration that stretches me a little bit so I can dream and think. The third thing is music. And I will actually access certain types of music, cinematic playlist, or I listen to this Inzel music app, which is just non-vocal music. But I'll listen to some music that elevates my vibration. Literally, music or sound shifts your vibration. Sound changes matter. And so if I go and listen to Metallica versus, or, 9 Inch Nails, that's going to be a very different feel than if I go listen to Enya or something like that. Right. And the fourth thing, I'm going to understand my neurochemistry. And so for neurochemistry to activate flow state, I can actually do it pretty consistently when I use, I get NAD optimized. So I use a supplement from a brand called Genfinity. That gives me mental, natural, cellular energy, and a huge difference for physical, mental energy. And then when that's up, I feel great. But I'll also take a thing called nootropics. Do you take any nootropics?
Not right now.
Okay. So my favorite brand is a brand called the Genius brand. You can get it on Amazon or geniusbrand.com. but they have this this one supplement called Genius Consciousness. And I noticed night and day difference, or a nice boost when I take it. It has a little bit of caffeine, but it has mostly substances in there that causes your brain to focus. And then the other thing that I'll take, I do a lot of matcha green tea instead of coffee. The reason why is L-theanine is a substance that causes your brain to have a nice, calm focus state. And also the caffeine release is not like coffee where it's a huge spike up, which gives you a little jitters and then it crash down. It's a steady release over 3 or 4 hours. And it's about half the caffeine of coffee, but it's a nice steady release. So you get a nice little bump up, but it's a calm focus, which is what you want when you're in flow state.
God, brother, you brought me back. There was a time where I did stop doing coffee. I was doing green tea, still doing my bulletproof form, but I was doing it with green tea. I absolutely am going back at least every other day because I love that taste. And you're right. It's not such a harsh, like, here you go, man. It's really a nice, mellow way to do it. Brother, I could go with, go ahead.
Have you done matcha or just green tea?
No, I've done both, actually. Yeah. I enjoy, look, it's so funny, man. I've become a big tea drinker. I do tea every morning and every night. Yeah. So my wife says I've become very, very Asian. I've become her dad. And I'm like, I because of all the stuff I do, like I have all my Buddhist stuff going on. And she's like, you're more Buddhist than my dad. Anyway, I could go so many ways, but you know what? I just want to give you open forum, Mike. Anything I didn't know enough to ask you that you're like, JM, before we wrap up, brother, we got to share this with the audience.
Yeah, good question. So, I think the number one thing, and really what I look at my whole process and working with leaders and entrepreneurs and high performers, my goal is to get you what I call neuro-optimize, which is in a great state of mind. Your trauma triggers, etc., are de-escalated or healed. Your brain is firing in an optimal way, and you feel really confident and certain about the direction you're going and what you're building. And so I also want to add, like, there's no reason to be stuck. If you feel in an inkling that you might be stuck in a significant way, just reach out. I'd be glad to have a conversation, point you in the right direction if I'm not the right resource. I've had conversations with veterans that have had PTSD for 20 years and they can't even go into a restaurant. Now that's a pretty severe case, right? But I pointed them in a direction locally that they could find and get on the other side of some of that pain. The other thing is when you do some of this work, it doesn't have to be something that is an unraveling. One of the biggest fears that I see with high performers, if they're almost afraid to tackle the skeletons in the closet, because they're like, I don't have time to fall apart and become a mush puddle, right? That's one of the big, and I'm like, no, we're going to get on the other side of it in a day. More than likely, we'll get on the other side of the majority of the challenge in a single day, and you're going to feel lighter, and you're going to feel greater, and you're going to be able to think clearer. Like when my clients work with me, sometimes there's tears shed, sometimes there's not. But when we get on the other side of the session, they're going home in this higher elated state because they just left. The metaphor I use is you left a bag of bricks. You've been carrying around some bags of bricks and you just left a huge one behind. And your energy just feels lighter, which means you can think clearer, you can make decisions better, you can lead with more positive energy, less fear, less anxiety, less doubt. So, and also there's so much science on this. I mean, I literally listened to about 150 podcasts when I was researching how to get my wife out of depression and out of the PTSD mode, read a dozen books. I became friends with 2 leading neuroscientists now that are guiding me from the scientific side in this space, and then other people with tons of knowledge and research way beyond mine in specific areas. So I know the pharmacology better, the dosing, the experience, like how to create the experience. And I think there's nothing, when you have access to your highest self, it feels freaking amazing. And it's going to be powerful. So
yeah, brother, I love that. I just literally pictured taking that backpack, take all those bricks out, and don't be afraid of that, man. Brother, I'm so blessed to have you in my circle. I'm so excited to see you. But I want others to get access to you, Mike, just because you are a man of action. He doesn't
mhm.
say things and not follow through, guys. He actually may say he's going to do something and immediately does it. He is a man of action. And if you're looking to hit flow more often, you're looking to be truly free, he is an amazing resource. Where can they find you, brother? What's the best place for them to connect with you?
Yeah, thanks, JM, and likewise back to you, man. It's been such a joy connecting with you, and can't wait to see you in a few weeks as well. Mike at MikeZeller.com is my email. Feel free to email me there, questions, etc. On any social media channel at the Mike Zeller. I'm most active on Instagram, LinkedIn, and a little bit of Facebook and TikTok as well, and YouTube. Actually, my YouTube channel is getting ready to start cranking a lot. So those are the main spaces. If you have questions, message me. If you're interested in doing a private session, let me know. I also have retreats, 3-day epic retreats that are unbelievable and radically transformative, but beautiful. Truly one of the most beautiful experiences of your life. So that's what I'm about. I love helping unlock leaders and entrepreneurs for their highest levels of performance, and it's been a fun journey so far, and I've got a huge roadway ahead of me because really no one else in the space is doing what I'm doing with using the power of plant medicines coupled with NLP and all the other deep work for entrepreneurs and leaders. So it's a ton of fun.
Guys, please reach out. He literally gave you his own personal email. This guy is amazing. I promise you, you will not be disappointed. Brother, thanks for coming on, sharing so much. I appreciate you.
Likewise. Appreciate you having me, JM.
Guys, please go reach out. I'm telling you, my wife and I are literally doing it. We are taking action. And the amount of people I've met through Mike, he's just an amazing human being. And I want you guys to support what he's doing because don't be afraid. You deserve the very best. You deserve to unlock your best version of you. And Mike can absolutely do that. Until next time, you guys, your mindset matters so much. I appreciate you all. We'll talk soon.